Hello, welcome to Camp Unwrapped. Great to see you and lovely to see you, Andy.
Hiya Rich, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. Andy, how are you?
I'm not too bad, thank you very much. Trying to keep busy, keeping well during lockdown.
And Tom, great to see you. How are you?
I'm not bad. I'm doing all right, thank you, Rich.
Good, good. It's nice to see you. What have you got for us today?
So today we are going to be talking about how camp began way back years ago, the inspiration behind it, and how we've gone from what it started as to what it is today. So I thought we'd look at first, Rich, when you were younger, back in the days of primary school, what were you like as a child? Can you see links from that era to how you are at camp now?
Very early on in primary school, probably not. No, I was a bit of a enjoyed school, enjoyed friends, just got on with life. Wasn't particularly popular, wasn't really particularly good at anything. Just enjoyed school, to be honest. And things started to develop later on in secondary school, which I can tell you about. Were you two similar, or were you stars in the making at primary school?
I went to a pretty small primary school, I think, compared to someone who maybe grew up in London. So I'd say we didn't really have like popular kids and less popular because everyone just kind of mucked in together. But yeah, I was always in the sports teams and competed for different things, which is probably my main outlet at school.
Yeah, for me, I was always involved in sport as well. All of the teams, we had a cricket team, football team. I was involved in the netball team as well for a short while. So everything that there was, I was involved in. But I was never massively outgoing. I was never known as, being hugely confident in front of people. So yeah, for me it was sort of a balance.
Yeah.
Loved sport, but then wasn't as outgoing.
That's interesting you say that. When I was about 11, it might have been 12, and I'd always, for some reason, played on the wing. I was a very slow, very unskillful, never scored any goals, never set up any goals, never really did anything much, winger for the school team. And we were in a PE lesson, and my PE teacher came up to me and said, "Richard, today you're going to be playing centre back." So I looked at him. I thought that's a bit odd. Never played there before. I wouldn't even know how to. And so I said, "Okay, I'm happy to do that." Be too scared to say no. And he said, "And you're going to be in charge of bringing the players up and down for the offside and making sure you're organising the defence." So I looked at him and said, "I'm so sorry, but no one will listen to me." So he looked back at me and he paused, and then he looked back at me again and said, "Yes, Richard, they will listen to you because you're going to be the captain." And I nearly fainted. I said, "What? I've never been captain of anything before. I'm not. I don't have it in me." But again, I said, "Okay, that's fine." And then my friends found out, and they all laughed. They thought it was a joke. Why on earth would Richard be captain? He's a bit of a nothing. But from that moment on, I started organising the teams, doing what the captain had to do. I took responsibility for all the things that you need to take responsibility for, and I grew into that role, and then became captain of the cricket team, the tennis team, and it just became a natural area for me at school. And that's sort of really real thing that I did really well at school at, is my organisational abilities. And that came from that one moment, from a PE teacher who must have seen something, or he was just very, very lucky.
Brilliant how something that you may not consider education, like playing in a sports team, can have such a massive impact on a child. So when you were younger, did you attend a camp as a camper? Was that what inspired you?
Myself and my brothers did one football camp. It was a day camp. We went for a couple of days on one half term. I think we all didn't enjoy it very much. We just preferred being in the garden and playing sport with each other. We got on very, very well. However, when I was in fifth and sixth form at school, I started helping out at a camp, a local day camp, as a member of staff. And so I I learned about, how to deal with kids and how to coach sessions and the kind of a bit behind the scenes on what might work at a camp. And that's sort of where some of my influence came.
And did you go to university? Did you have any experiences of that ilk that shaped things?
No, no, I didn't go to uni. I tried. In those days, you could apply to 8 universities a year. Is that the same now? How many do you apply for now?
5.
Five.
5.
So yeah, I was given 8 shots, and I did it over 2 years. And over those 2 years, got 16 rejections. Not one university would have me, for a number of reasons. One of them being my marks weren't very good. So no, I didn't get into university. I didn't get other opportunity, and I feel in some ways I missed out on a huge amount. Tom, you're presently at uni, and Andy, you've been. What do you feel you got out of that, other than the academic side?
Well, for me, like you mentioned with your sports team, it's a lot of self-discipline, a lot of organizational skills that come far beyond the subject that you're studying. I know for me, a big part of my learning curve at university was going abroad and studying on an exchange program in Singapore. So that was far outside of my discipline. It just threw me into a whole different context, a whole new culture that then I had to adapt to. So that was one thing that really made me adapt and overcome challenges. So I suppose, yeah, likewise, there are different things that you're not studying for that you're exposed to, and you have to learn in different ways. I suppose, how about you, Tom?
I'd say the biggest thing that I've acquired from uni is probably financial debt. But in terms of the experiences that I've picked up, I think it's been a brilliant way to sort of learn how to stand on your own 2 feet, and even simple things you have to be responsible for, like cooking and looking after the house you're in and keeping yourself fit and healthy. I think it's been really important coming to uni to get that experience. And then I've also found it brilliant being able to join up in new clubs and try out new sports. So for the first time at uni, I didn't play football, but did athletics for a season, which has been, a really useful experience. Did
either of you have friends or people that you knew of at university who it didn't suit them and they came and went very quickly?
Yeah, I had a couple of friends. I think for me personally, I live in a very rural area, and we went to school and we were in the same class for about 15 years. So it's a real shock to the system when you go to a big city with thousands of people and all these different things going on. And some people just weren't ready for that change, which is understandable. It's not for everyone, and I say a living proof, Rich, of how you don't have to go to uni to be successful.
Oh, it's very, very kind of you to say so, Tom.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Tom. There are some people that I know that went to uni, like you say, moved to a bigger city, and it just was not for them. Maybe it was too much going on, or it just didn't suit their lifestyle. So it's not for everyone, absolutely.
So, Rich, you went from finishing school and then not getting into uni. So was summer camp the very next step, or did you go through other stages of work first?
I didn't do a huge amount of work. It wasn't years. I left school. I actually had a couple of shoulder operations. I had a very dodgy shoulder, and that took quite a lot of time out before I could actually do anything. But I worked for Marks and Spencer for 6 months. I got into a gap year scheme for 6 months as a trainee manager, and parts of it I enjoyed, but I didn't really enjoy the atmosphere generally, the way they treated their staff in those days. It was very old-fashioned, I felt. I didn't feel they really looked after their people well. And on my last day, I told my line manager that I'll never work for anyone else again because I'm going to start my own business and do it in the right way, which he was a bit surprised at. And when I came out of my meeting and went home, I was surprised at it as well. I had no idea. I had no idea how I was going to keep that promise, to be honest.
So would you say, Rich, that that negative experience has prompted you into forming and creating what we know as camp today?
Absolutely. And it's a lesson for anyone at any time that sometimes things that you don't enjoy or that you don't think are good happen, and you need to use them for the good and for the right reasons. And I did use that period on how to learn, how to treat other people, how to get the best out of people, what people want when they work for you. Everybody wants to feel that they're doing a good job. They want to feel valued. And those things the staff at M&S at that time didn't, in my experience. But I always wanted to make sure if I did have a business that we would make people feel valued and looked after. So absolutely, it was a really valuable experience in the end. I also had another job. I worked for a friend of my mum's who sold beauty products. So I had two jobs. One was in the stockroom, taking orders, filling up the stock, doing the boxes, sending them off, and making sure people receive their invoices. And so I learned a lot about that, about how important it is. You're very organised and efficient, and make sure everyone gets what they want to have. And secondly, I went out on the road, driving around the UK, visiting these health spas and trying to meet up with her clients. But yeah, those things I did before I started the business, and then I started at about 19.
So camp as we know it today, we have multiple sites across Britain, hundreds of campers, thousands if not coming from around the world, and a staff team that takes you months to assemble. But how different is that from the very first camp 20, 25 years ago that you put on?
Gosh, yeah, looking back at it, a lot has changed. It was very, very different. Our first camp was a day camp at Christ College School. We called it Cross Keys. And part of the reason we called it Cross Keys is we had a football team called Cross Keys. So I thought, okay, I can have the same t-shirts and sweatshirts, sell them to my football team colleagues, and then through that money I can give them to our staff. So our staff had proper attire to wear. Our first camp, we had 20 kids, I believe, or not more than 20 kids, of which 4 of them were siblings. We had to fight tooth and nail to get every single child, and favors, and please can you come, and really trying to do our best to get those numbers. And we had 12 members of staff, of which we had a headmaster, we had a housemaster, we had a number of teachers. So it's very, very highly qualified. Not great for business, having 12 staff and 20 kids for the financial side, but it did set us up very well. We had a quality product, doing quality activities. The kids loved it. They all came back, and they all slowly invited other people, and very, very slowly, and I'm talking over years, though that 20 turned into 30, which turned into 50, which turned into 60. And then we were big enough to start thinking about other camps and growing properly.
At that time, Rich, how would you approach people, prospective staff members, to encourage them to join your team?
Well, it's very different to now. We didn't have Indeed and online. So we put adverts out in newspapers, like local newspapers, and there was a lot of calling out favours from people, ringing people up and saying, could you please spend the week with us doing this camp? And generally people were very, very helpful. They wanted a bit of cash and they wanted to help me out. So yeah, it's very different to now. We didn't have those large scale interviews. It was all one-on-ones.
So looking from what we have as camp today back to, when you just had 20 children at the very beginning, would you say there's been a key moment or an incident that acted as a turning point or a catalyst to project it from what you had to now? Or would you say it's just been a steady progression from day one?
Yeah, I'd say there's 2 main turning points. The first one was I was running 2 day camps, Cross Keys and Mini Miners, and Mini Miners is still standing, and got the opportunity to take over XUK. And this is now 20 odd years ago. And I took over XUK, which happened then to be a day camp. one day camp and one residential camp, quite small, 100 kids or so there. And I took over that. And that was the first thing. And that started growing properly. And then the second turning point was when my brother Nick, who'd previously said to me, Richard, I would never ever work for you. It could never happen because you're too difficult a person to work with. He came round and suggested that he come in with me. And he wanted to be part of the organisation. And he had some really, really good ideas on how we could expand our provision at Eccles. And we turned that from a camp that had 110 children in to a camp that had 160 to 70 children in within a year or two after Nicky joined. And that then was the catalyst to opening the other sites. So Nick has had an enormous input into things getting bigger. And now I couldn't imagine running a business or being in business without Nick. It would be very, very foreign to me.
That's brilliant. I mean, I'm sure we could sit here and talk for hours about each summer that has come and gone since you began, but we'll wrap it up there. So I've just got one question to ask the two of you before we go. And I'm fortunate in that I've got pages of notes here from all of the Zoom quizzes that I've been doing. So I'm going to pick one at random and say, where can you tell me is the coldest country ever recorded? Which country? Andy, what are you thinking?
I'm going to go based on just the name itself, Chile.
Chile?
It's not going to be, I'm sure it's not going to be Chile. I don't know. I'm going to go like Russia, like Siberia type Russia.
Yeah, Russia is the correct answer. And a bonus point, can you have an estimate of what that temperature recorded was?
Wow. Minus 24.
Andy?
Minus 30.
The answer was minus 67 degrees. So yeah, pretty nippy over there. So yeah, thank you. That brings an end to that chat. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll hopefully see you next time. Remember, stay safe, stay at home, and keep healthy.